Hello everyone. Today I'm trying something new. Going to be starting a new project. I think I'm going to be calling it Driving for Truth, where I will be driving around whenever I'm running errands, or if I just want to go for a drive. I'm going to pick on a subject and see if I can't work through looking for some truth. Try to fill this truth with compassion and empathy, and as I am usually want to do, reveal some of the fallacies of society. So this will be a delicate dance that we may have a lot of fun. So when we decide to comment, let's do our best to keep it respectful. If you have an opposing viewpoint, that's fine. Let's debate, not argue. Try not to call names and be childish. So I think today's topic, I would like to touch on the news media. So one thing, as I go through life, I listen to people. I'm a people watcher. I love to go places and listen to what people are talking about. A lot of times it is the current events of the day, what's going on in the news. And of course, the last few years there's been a lot going on in the news, and there's a lot of opposing viewpoints. So one thing I'm reminded of is a game we used to play as kids, and something that I want to say in the 80s or 90s was used in corporate team building exercises when it came to how to relay messages and communicate with each other, as things like email were coming about in corporate America. And I'm not even sure what the exercise or game is called, but everybody would stand in a circle or in a line. This was also done at some adultish type parties, just as fun. But people would stand in a circle or a line, and the first person would have a phrase or saying or a message that they would turn and whisper into the person next to them, into their ear. And as the phrase was whispered across the line, around the circle, whisper, 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 people would mishear, misinterpret the phrase. And by the time it got to the last person, the phrase was almost always nowhere near what the original intent or meaning had been at the beginning. This is how I perceive modern news media. You have an event that happens over on this side of the world. There is a journalist of sorts or somebody there to tell the story. They tell it through whatever media they have, face-to-face conveyance, writing in a letter, electronic media of sorts. And whether they do that via text, telephone, social media page, whatever, that message is whispered, if you will, around the world. It gets to editors who convey, in their words, they change the wording up a little bit, and they have their people, they convey that message however they convey it to their people reading the news on screen or on radio or however. A lot of times it goes through several editors and writers, and that message is changed. And in an attempt to get more ratings, they throw in words to elicit an emotional response. Because as humans, we all have emotion and respond to that emotion. There are editors and writers that are very well versed and educated in creating the news stories with the proper words to give you the proper emotional response. So you'll watch their channel. Their news channel also has a duty to their stockholders, because they are a business, to make money. So this is why they use these words to create that response. So you'll feel the way they do, you'll think the way they do, or it'll create an emotional reaction in you. So you will begin to believe. If you don't believe the way they believe, they create that situation for people to generally change their way of thinking and start thinking the way they do. And it's a sad thing that we as a society have allowed this to happen. And continue this downward spiral of information. And then so many people get online and they become keyboard warriors and start trashing each other for opposing viewpoints rather than having nice, intelligent conversation and debate on subjects. And even sometimes, a lot of times, I think I have strong feelings about a subject, and somebody else comes along with an opposing viewpoint, and they have researched and spent all this time looking into to find points to back up what they're seeing, feeling, thinking. And I'm too busy for a lot of that, so I get kind of lost in the debate. But I always listen to the people with opposing viewpoints because they do have the time to look up the facts and I listen, and my mind has been changed on quite a few points of interest in life. But sometimes, deep down, you realize that right is right, wrong is wrong. And it doesn't matter what your emotional response is, or it doesn't matter what your religious viewpoint is. Some things are right, some things are wrong. And as a society, we must think and determine how that affects each and every one of us. So just because something affects one of us or a lot of us a certain way does not make it right. It doesn't make it wrong either. Sometimes it's a subject that should just be left alone, not debated, not argued, not put into the legal system to make changes to give or take away rights. Too many laws take away our freedoms because too many people believe differently. So next time you are watching the news and you start to become emotional in either direction, mad at the news anchor telling the story, happy at the news anchor telling the story, elated that something, made somebody else angry, think about that. Is it really worth it? Just to get back at somebody? Or do you just want to stick with the facts and keep your own beliefs to yourself? In a lot of ways, that's what we need to do as a society. Keep a lot of our belief to ourselves and not try to force that on others just because we feel it is right. Because to somebody else, it's not right. So yeah, I think that's how I'm going to, I'm going to close out with this. When you're feeling that emotion, one way or the other, think about those words. Think about how many people added those words into a story many ears it was whispered into, how many changes were made, and how far off the original message it actually was. And thinking like that will help you to eventually live your life with respect, peace, and love.